Senator Cornyn.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney General, please forgive my voice. We're going to try to croak through this together.
Okay.
But let me just ask, do you acknowledge the legitimacy of military commissions?
Absolutely. I think that what Congress has done in response to the Supreme Court concerns in reforming the military commissions, military tribunals, has legitimized them and makes them places in which people can be referred and tried. And it was one of the reasons why I sent 5 of those people there on last Friday.
And so your decision to try some of these 9/11 co-conspirators in Article 3 court is not compelled by any law. It was a matter of your judgment and discretion.
A matter of my judgment, my discretion, my experience, my interaction with the Secretary of Defense, my interaction with prosecutors both on the military side and on the civilian side, all of that went into making that determination.
Does the President of the United States agree with you?
I believe that he does. I've not had a direct conversation with him. I've seen reports indicating that he agrees with the decision that I made. But the decision I made, I think, is consistent with his archives speech where he laid out how he viewed how the detainees at Guantanamo should be handled.
Well, you acknowledge that you worked for the President of the United States. He could fire you if he disagreed with you, that he could overrule you, correct?
Yes, he could do that.
Well, I want to ask you, you mentioned that we are currently offering Miranda rights or reading Miranda rights to suspected terrorists on the battlefield. Is that correct?
No, what I said was that happens very, very rarely. It happened during the Bush administration. It happens very rarely. I've talked to the FBI about this. There was some misreporting about the notion that people captured on the battlefield were automatically being read their Miranda warnings, and the reality is there are thousands of people who are captured, and a very, very small number have been read Miranda warnings after military lawyers, civilian lawyers, investigators from both sides made the determination that there was some reason to give Miranda warnings to those captives. And
you support that decision to give Miranda rights to some suspected terrorists?
Well, give them, Miranda warnings if that means it's going to preserve an option for us, and I think that's why it's done.
And you support it?
Well, I would support it to the limited extent that it is done. I defer to the people in the field who make these determinations, and I think, are capable of making those determinations given the facts that they have to confront that are right in front of them.
And should Khalid Sheikh Mohammed have been read his Miranda rights?
There's no need. I don't think there was no need. We don't need his statements.
With all due deference, you're not going to be the ultimate arbiter of that decision. It'll be a judge, won't it, at the trial or appellate level? Correct?
Yeah, that's true. If that's an issue that they raise on appeal, should there be an appeal. But I'm confident that the way in which this case is going to be structured, that given the way in which and the various places in which we will be able to find statements that he made, that the need for Miranda warnings, there is no need for Miranda warnings, or was no need for Miranda warnings.
Well, he did ask for a lawyer, didn't he, when he was detained?
I frankly don't know.
You're not aware of the fact that he asked for a lawyer and he said he wanted to go to New York?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes, that's correct. I'd want a lawyer and I want to go to New York. I remember those two. Yes.
And he's getting his wish, I guess. When did he first get a lawyer? Do you know?
No, I don't know the exact date.
Do you acknowledge the possibility that a judge, consistent with what you believe to be sound policy of providing Miranda rights to some suspected detainees, would conclude that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was denied his rights, and thus he cannot be prosecuted for the crimes for which you anticipate charging him?
Well, Senator, you've been a judge, I've been a judge, and I can't say, you can't say, no one can say with any 100% degree of certainty that a judge would not look at a particular set of facts and rule in a particular way. And yet, as I look at the facts surrounding the interaction with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the detention of him, the evidence that we will present at trial, I'm very confident that Miranda issues are not going to be a part of that trial.
Well, General Holder, you've been a judge, I've been a judge, and you're correct to acknowledge the fact that you won't make that decision.
Right.
I won't make that decision. Some judge will make that decision. Just like you said, you're not going to defer to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in determining the venue where he's going to be tried. You're the one making that decision. But isn't it the fact that you won't be the one making that decision? Ultimately, if a attempt to transfer venue based on the notoriety of this event on 9/11 is such, just like Timothy McVeigh, who killed so many Americans in Oklahoma, he was tried in Colorado. Isn't it a distinct possibility that a judge would transfer this case based on a local prejudice?
Sure, that's entirely possible, and there may be a motion for a venue change, but just as in the McVeigh case, the venue change did not have a material negative impact on the outcome of the trial. He was convicted and he was executed.
Well, in terms of local security arrangements, I mean, this case might be tried in Connecticut, or Vermont, some other part of the Second Circuit. And you can't control that. I can't control that. The judge is ultimately going to make that decision, correct?
Well, I would think that one of the things the judge would take into account, again, we're speculating here about the possibility of this case being moved, would hope that the judge...
But you have to consider all the possibilities, don't you, in assessing the risk?
We consider the possibilities, and I would hope that the judge would take into account in deciding where the case would be tried, the very real security concerns that this trial would present.
And you said that if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is acquitted, he will not be released. What if a federal judge orders the Department of Justice to release him? Will you defy that order?
We have taken the view that the judiciary does not have the ability necessarily to certainly require us to, with regard to people held overseas, to release them. It's hard for me to imagine a set of circumstances given the other things that we could do with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. There are other things that we can do with him, aside from simply immigration things. There are other legal things we can do with him. It's hard for me to imagine a set of circumstances under which, if he were acquitted, that he would be released into the United States. There are other matters. There are other things that we have the capacity to do, other legal matters that we can bring. Well,
you recognize the Supreme Court has said you can't hold somebody indefinitely, for example, who can't be repatriated to their home country.
So you can certainly hold people in connection with matters that are pending, and we have the capacity to make sure that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is not released into the United States.
My time's expired. Thank you.
Of course, I might say only half facetiously, I suspect a lot of people in New York wouldn't mind having him released onto the streets of New York. I suspect he would not want to be released onto the streets of New York.